Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. We've just hit on the hour on this side. I'm sure all of our founders are popping in as we speak. In the background, we're very excited to have all of you here today. Thanks for being here with us. I think we are live on a good couple of different platforms today. So looking forward to some exciting engagement. I am personally very excited about today's session. We've got a powerhouse lineup of speakers for you guys. As we think about this year ahead as business owners and entrepreneurs and professionals. So the world has really changed a lot in the last year. I think everyone will definitely agree with that. We've all felt it in our personal lives. We've all felt it in our professional lives. And the business landscape in its totality has definitely also had some significant changes. Almost a year ago, coronavirus started ripping through the global economy, started influencing people's health and people's livelihoods all throughout the world. Here at home, we were also definitely hard hit, and all across the world, including here, we're definitely still feeling the effects as we are still weathering this storm. But the good news is vaccines are arriving, vaccines are rolling out all across the board. You can see world leaders, getting their injection in the arm and people queuing up for that very, very welcome vaccine rollout. So, yeah, we're very keen, obviously, to get back to some kind of normality in terms of freedom of movement and security for our health and our family. But while we are kind of still plowing through this crisis that we've gone through, I think it's really important to be able to still focus and control the things that you actually can control. A lot has been out of our hands. Many industries have taken some severe knocks in the last while, and it's been quite difficult to navigate. Some other industries, again, have absolutely exploded. And, whether you're on the one side or the other side or not really influenced, the landscape has really changed for good. And as much as vaccines can bring a sense of normality, I think, in our personal lives, I do think there are a couple of seismic shifts in the business world that we won't see swinging completely back to where it was pre-COVID. So, yeah, as business leaders, we all have to make a lot of different decisions, for this year coming up, as well as for all of the years ahead. So what we've done with this 2021 outlook, only a couple of weeks into the new year, is really we've brought together a couple of specialists from different industries and different areas of expertise, and we've asked them to share their thoughts on some of the key elements of business in this period. So we're going to be talking about strategy. What about strategy is still the same and what has changed. We're going to talk about how marketing and sales has changed over this last period and what to do about it. We're going to speak about finance, and we're going to think about what the perfect finance function for a company in the current circumstances would be. And we're also going to speak about that all-important element of people and leadership within a company. And I'm personally very, very excited to be doing these interviews with business leaders that many of you would be familiar with. They've become household names in the ecosystem that we operate in. And we're really grateful to be able to have them here today to bring that wealth of experience that they've accumulated over years, if not decades, to us in this high-power interview style webinar today. So we're going to be structuring it in terms of four quick power sessions. It's going to be a Q&A style, and yeah, we're very stoked to spend the next hour with you. I want to invite you to sit back with your coffee, to focus nicely for the next hour. This is your time that you've set out, as a leader or a leadership team, to grow and develop and learn. And I know that if we give this our full attention, there's a lot of golden nuggets that each one of us can absolutely take out of this session. I know I'm personally very looking forward to it very, very much. Then I will ask Donnie Nell, who's going to be our first speaker. Donnie, are you able to jump on with me? And as Donnie comes on, I just want to introduce this man who's joining me on the screen to you guys. So Donnie is the founder and the chairman of Nebula Group of Companies. Donnie has over a couple of decades built one of the most impressive groups in the technology sphere that I have come across, and he's a personal master of scaling up and of all things strategy. Donnie, we're very grateful to have you here with us today. We're so excited to see you in this new year. and we're very keen to hear what you have to say to our group of founders today. Welcome.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm great to be back in real life after my tough experience, but I'm ready. So
sure.
fire off.
How are you doing? Just share with our audience like your experience of the last little while.
Yeah, so if anybody wants a COVID recipe, I've got some good steps for you. It's very similar to strategy. I've really made sure I got that. I think the toughest thing for me has been the impact on my brain. I experienced a sort of a space where I couldn't think logically. So that was very tough for me. And I also, I just want to light a candle to all the people that support us, you know, so the frontline workers, the doctors. My dad landed with COVID in hospital, which was still traumatic. Yeah, it's I think my view of leadership and the way I look at life has completely changed about that. Life is short, eh? So yeah. So, but not what you do, it's what you do for others. That is a fundamental part. So awesome.
Sure, Donnie. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the vulnerability on this platform. You know, I think almost everyone who's tuning in today on whichever platform they are can relate it, you know, at some level to what you're saying. Everyone has had, you know, family members impacted, themselves impacted, you know, close friends impacted, many lives have been lost. So I think it's only appropriate that we you know start with, you know, taking a moment, you know, for what this last while has really been. But yeah, thank you for being with us. We're so grateful to have you operating at full steam again, and that you've pulled through nicely. Well done. Great, guys. So Donnie is our expert on strategy, and this is something that's very, very close to my own heart. I know we as a company between December last year and the beginning of this year as Outsource CFO, we've gone through a big process of, you know, re-looking at our strategy for the year ahead and also for the very long term. Because I think, you know, strategy is a phenomenally important pillar of any good company. So, you know, a good strategy, Donnie, for a growth business has always been, you know, built around a certain core structure. You know, Jim Collins talks a lot about it. The Growth Institute guys talk a lot about it. You know, you generally have this big vision. You have a massive long-term goal that you want to aspire towards. You have a couple of company values that the team can rally around, and you break all of that down into 5-year and 1-year plans, and maybe a quarterly plan as well. And there's, you know, kind of there's been a set structure that we've all been taught to work from. I want to hear from you firstly, has this changed over the last year? Now that things are so different, like how would you say that has changed?
So I definitely think a couple of things has changed, but I just would like to zoom into, there's the method and your thinking around this. So out of the things that you just shared now, so they are, I will call it the core anchors that really doesn't change, except if your business is completely destroyed. So and those 3 things are the core values. You don't change core values overnight. So that is a 60 month period, but it comes from you as a founder as well. Then your BHAG is always, that's a long term, the 20-year. I see that's something also to think about. But that must be exciting. When people hear it, they must go, that's what you want to create out of that. And something for us that we learned out of this whole COVID side is that we had the view for that, but COVID actually sped this up for us. So sometimes people need to really think about, does it slow you down, to speed you up, or did you find another way? In our case, we found another way to speed it up by just having different thinking. The 5-year goals also is sort of in still solid there, but you've got to really look at it. But then the underbelly of that keeps on changing is something that you have to do every year, and you have to review every year the purpose of your business, the mission. Are you still doing the right stuff? Are you still the core reason why you started off? So in our world, my core purpose was to expedite the growth of people. That was my higher purpose. There's a very wonderful story about the guy that did the Good Foods Market or the some in the US. But then our primary or a secondary purpose of why the business is the smarter way in the world that we see. You have to review annually, really, to make sure, are you still relevant in your market space that you are? And then the excitement you create around this is your 12-month or longer vivid vision. That when you close your eyes and you see, okay, where will I be in 24 months? And you recite that. and you think about it. So that is you've got to have that, and this is sort of, you have the long-term side, but the short-term side where people can actually, I'm in a mountain, but I can see something, And then there's always the talks about your 90-day plan, the 3 months, your rhythm with that. And I think here is something also important, really, because everybody talks about the KPIs and what is out there, but this must be real. We started using OKRs, and really making sure that that you keep the execution of certain things, but also make it simple. Not take on a lot. Just to pick one or two, but keep the anchors that are solid. Keep the vivid vision of what you need to question every year, and keep then a mechanism of the mechanics of how you're going to do every 3 months.
Sure.
I hope it made sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense, Tony. Thank you very much for laying that out so in such a crystal clear manner. I love how you're able to do that. It shows the experience of how many times you've gone through, revamping and improving this process of yours over the years. So it's beautiful for us just to be able to, to hear that and to learn from it. You mentioned short-term and long-term. I love that. I want to ask about the short-term, the next kind of 6 to 12 months or so. What are some of the important considerations that a founder team would have to think about when they're doing this kind of shortish term thinking?
Yeah,
Just given the world might change quite a lot as the vaccines roll out or don't roll out, or successful or not successful. It may be a different playing field in a year from now. How does one go about focusing on a strategy for that period?
Yeah. So I'll share my experience with this. So when COVID happened, it's the story I shared to everybody. You got to accept what is real, not what it have to be or want to be, but if you're in a pool right now, what is it right now? How deep is it? So one of the learnings for me out of this is really simplify things. We started focusing when the tough stuff happened only on 3 things. One was cash. Number one, really making sure that we have a ton of cash to make sure we can save money. So that for me is you must be able to have enough cash to sustain you. So something I missed in my strategy was I had 4 goals time-wise. I said, when a lockdown came, end of April, we might be over. Then I said the next one was end of June. And then I said, end of September is only going to be March 2021. And now what do we see? It's actually 2022, right? So something that I've learned out of this is, and as a tip for everybody, go look at history. And that's what I missed. I never thought about the Spanish flu. But if you go and read about the Spanish flu in 1920, then that one had 4 waves, which is the second wave was the most severe.
Sure.
Now, if you look at what happens with us now, is that every time there's a wave equals 3-month lockdown. So that is the pattern that's going to happen. So you talk about vaccines. I think we're not going to get out of the lockdown period. There's going to be a spike happening, trying to support people. So that's what we're going to live. So cash, that is why you need to make sure that you've got enough stuff to deal with so that you can take a puncture. So cash for me is always going to be, if you think about your mountain bike, that solution you put in there, you can take a few nails and it just blows up again. So that is so important. The second big thing for us was people. And that was really having the right people. But here's the fundamental part, and I'm so sorry I couldn't do the people day. But there's one big thing to remember, is that the employee experience that you create for people working for you will change to the future to become a life experience. So the person working for you is not just going to be about, yes, I started here and we left here, whatever. It's going to be the contribution that you're going to do for that person about his life. So our workforce have to have more stamina, have to have more resilience. That is going to be fundamentally important for you to have the stamina to go through this, because you work from home, you're crowded there, you have lots of things around you. So people will get tired of that. And one of the interesting part for us is that now is the time of really making sure that you look after the best people and you get rid of the weak, the bad people. And people look up to you how you deal with it. So for us, we check in every day on the health of our staff. So something that we've done is we've created a COVID special package to give people 10 days now free sick leave to just recover. We sent them 5 meals to their homes when they go, because I also went through that. You disabled completely. Then the last part for me is process. So we this is a time that you actually need to sit down and simplify your business. I think I've suffered a lot around this by making your business complex. So the key fundamental part for me in terms of looking at now is simplifying business. What can you automate? What can you reduce manual work for? Simplify, and create that mindset for the people. Put a goal in that. When something happens and I need to appoint somebody to do that, why? Can a system do that? Etc. So we were only focusing on those 3 things to simplify the COVID service. Cash, to be able to take a puncture. Secondly, people, to know you have the best and resilience, and give a different kind of experience for them to have resilience and stamina. And process, simplify your business. Make it simple.
That's amazing, Donnie. It's interesting also, those 3 elements are 3 of the 5 topics that we wanted to bring to the table today for this conversation. Jacques going to be talking us through, through finance and cash a little bit later, and Eileen will take us through people, and we've got a few automation ideas also being thrown in. So nice that you've come up with the exact same kind of areas of importance as we felt like, we also felt these are the important things to get right in a time such as this. I want to ask, if there's one tool or practice or so that you've used over the years in terms of strategy that has really helped you refine and that you're also using now. What would you say that tool is, and where can founders learn more about it?
Just repeat that, a tool.
Yeah, is there any kind of a tool or an approach or a practice that you have that you use to plan strategy?
I think the interesting part for me is a bit on scenario planning. Mm-hmm. You've got to ask yourself, what if? What if? Yeah. Can you look around the corner? What if a bomb drops on me? So we always thought about if I run out of cash, but nobody thought about COVID. That stops everybody in the tracks. So somehow, for me, is one of the key parts is, and this is actually quite nice from the guy that wrote the fox story about the fox, to have this scenario kind of thinking about it, but also read. Yeah, Clem Hunter. It's also important to think about history. History tells you a lot about things that has happened and can happen again. So for me, that helps me a lot. I read a lot. What I recently found, where I found some great foresight about strategies, actually McKinsey's. McKinsey's is amazing stuff that they send through. And then what I do is I've got a network of CEOs that I talk to regularly, every 2 weeks. Sure. And what I do for my team is, I ask them, what's a signpost that you see? In terms of strategy, always look out for a signpost. What do you hear? What does that signpost mean? So and that's what you start navigating around that. All you need to do is, I always tell the story, if somewhere in the wild and a lion chases you just have to run faster than the person next to you. You don't have to fight the lion. And it's a similar thing with strategy, so you just have to be one step ahead.
I love it. I'm sure everyone on the call is thinking how can we be just that little bit faster than the guy next to us? Don, I want to end off with one last question. Are there any big strategic moves that you guys have made as a group now, many decades into business, in the last little while, that you're willing to share with everyone to make it practical?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always was talking about that, be self-funded and whatever. So we come up with a recipe with it. But I think there's 2 things that really helped through the COVID thing. One was the rhythm that we put in place now. So previously the rhythm was once a week. Now it's every day, and that is a big part. The second big one for me is partnership. So we've made a decision to invest in a partnership. And I was always really skeptical about it. And that's always a difficult thing. So my lesson out of this is, instead of having 10 partnerships, get one, invest a lot in one. If it doesn't work, discard it. But you have to put the effort in it to understand it. But the fundamental part for us that was a change was that because the partner is bigger than you don't speak the partner's language. So when we started speaking the partners' language, they understood what we're all about.
Clever.
And then we could get sort of a exponential acceleration through that and building the brand or whatever. So there's an interesting book. Does anybody want to go about the strategies? Building $1 billion business. So a blueprint to $1 billion business. You can go and check it out. And in that, they talk about the inflection points that I explained to you, the pivot points. And there's a very interesting story about that, about the role of partnerships for you. So somehow in the world of your business, you will have an inflection point that you jump from the next cliff to the next cliff.
Yes.
You need to plan for that. You need to, because otherwise a 20% growth every year is just going to keep you there. Somehow, not to grow too fast, but have that inflection point.
Yes. Donnie, wow! Like as always, incredible. I feel like there's some reading work to do after this session for all of our entrepreneurs on the call, and a lot of thinking from all of your advice and insights. Thank you for bringing your experience shares to the table, and thank you for being so willing to engage with our founders on the call.
Pleasure.
It's meaningful.
Yeah.
Get well perfectly soon, and good luck for your year. It's great to have you.
Yeah. Thank you, and good to see everybody's pictures. Speak to you all soon. Keep well, eh? All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, I'm going to ask Jason to join me on the call. And Jason, are you here, champ?
I'm here. I'm ready.
The man is here and ready. That's good. That's good to hear. That's what I would expect, knowing him quite well. Guys, so we're very privileged to have Jason Bagley with us here today. He's the founder of Firing Squad and one of the kind of best minds in sales and marketing. If you're not sure how much attention to pay to the next 10-15 minutes, Jason has recently had his sales company acquired by a US business in a very exciting deal, and he's now the Vice President of Digital Strategy at SiteCare, based in the United States. So this man is a genius in my book, basically, when it comes to what we're going to talk about in the next while. I don't think he will disagree with me. Jason, so thanks for being with us, champ. I know it's busy times, and your clients are just about starting to wake up on the other side of the world. We've heard some great things from Donnie now. Strategy is good and all, but if you can't get the word out and if you can't manage to actually make some sales, a good strategy doesn't help. You have to close business. So firstly, I guess I want to chat to you about marketing and sales, because you have very good expertise in both of these areas. So firstly, just marketing, like how has it changed over the last year, would you say?
I don't think marketing or even sales has changed much in the last year, probably like maybe 10 years, sure. But in the last year, I think the biggest change, if you think about it from, what's maybe happened with COVID, or people have been more laser focused on where they're spending money, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they probably looked at the ROI of their channels that they're busy marketing. Are they actually making any leads from social media? So why are we even using that channel? Why are we spending money on it, for example? And I think then you're looking at your spend. So you're looking at your spend and you're looking at your ROI. You're more focused on the actual results versus, you just get a report from your agency every single month and you just, it looks okay, move on, seems leads are coming in, whatever, right? I think that's probably the biggest change. There's nothing big in terms of actual marketing fundamentals or, new trends or things like that have really changed.
But like you said, like definitely management teams focusing more on like, what are we actually getting for the, the money we're spending, and, where are the trends going in terms of what should we back, right? So
exactly.
Are there any kind of trends to look out for, if you were to think of the marketing landscape, like, is there something that we as business owners should kind of like pay attention to and take note of?
Yeah, definitely TikTok. And Clubhouse. No, listen, I'm genuinely not the biggest fan of jumping onto trends. I would rather be watching them and seeing what does happen and before jumping in, because listen, I've got squirrel mentality myself. Like when new shit comes out, I'm like, what's this? Let's go. And trying to you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what is this? Like, I'll sign up and check it out. And I waste my time doing those things. But the tried, old, tested forms of marketing and sales, if you do them well, consistently well over a period of time, they're always going to deliver. So, listen, unless you're an entrepreneur, those vacs just landed in Joburg. So we need those distributed. So
somewhere.
So like, exactly. I saw some businesses already being registered, like, vaccine transport, PTY Limited, off they go, right? Listen, other than that trend and PVE and all of that, I would say stick to those channels: content marketing, PPC, email, video, SEO. Like stick to those. Like those are trends. They've been around for ages. They still work.
Got it. And I mean, I love what you said about consistency, and then also making sure that you get the right ROI while consistently doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just consistently spinning your wheels. So I want to put an interesting question to you, and just hear, like, if you had a big marketing budget for a company, I'm sure you do have a big marketing budget. Like, how would you advise founders to think about splitting that marketing budget across channels? So, like, where is the good ROI right now? Let's call it B2B. Otherwise, we're making it very, very wide.
Yeah. So this is like the answer. Like, everybody wants this answer, right? This is like the goal. Yeah, totally. So, and I'm gonna love to just throw it depends. So we just all love that as an answer, right? So for me, so I'm just gonna go on our experience, and what we're obviously seeing for some of our clients, and what I'm also seeing sort of, in the broader sort of market and other entrepreneurs like yourself and other guys that I speak to. I mean, a big one for us, I'm obviously a big sucker for email, so love email. Obviously, email lead generation is a big one for us, and that's one thing I'll definitely look at. Content marketing, I think, is another big one that we're spending at the moment. Going to be spending a lot of money on ourselves, whether we're hiring people or getting outsourced freelancers to write really great. And I'm not talking like thought leader pieces of like. Yes, thought leader articles and things like that, but get down into like data. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, like, if you're looking for like bang for your buck, getting down to like maybe analyzing or compiling data. Like a great example, like OCFO, like talk about things like potential, like you've got a bunch of entrepreneurs, the ones that care about their finances and they actually have a monthly meeting, for example. How are their companies growing versus the ones that just like spray and pray and hope they only chat to you maybe once a year, as an example. Those type of articles. Exactly. Like those type of articles where you're like actually pulling out percentages and this is what's helping these, when people are doing X, this is what's happening. Why? That stuff gets PR, that stuff gets linked on other articles, that stuff gets, noticed. So that's like from a content marketing perspective, I would say I'd spend money on that. And then like PPC to drive, put some spend behind some of that stuff. So put spend behind, landing pages or videos that you're putting out, or, whether it's a podcast, whether it's like that type of thing. So, I mean, it's difficult to say like actual numbers because everyone's budget's different, but I wouldn't go and spray and I honestly would probably stay far away from like social, like spending too much time on social, just because it's one of the ones that you struggle with the most in terms of ROI. But outside of that, it would be, obviously, I'm going to say email. I would say content marketing because that's longer term. It's evergreen. So you can keep those articles are going to be around for ages and ages. And you can reshare them and change them up and take out bits. And one becomes an audio, one becomes a video, one becomes a tweet, one becomes so you can use that over and over again. And I think PPC, because that's going to be your instant flick the switch and traffic's going to start coming in. So I would like sort of, use those three and see what works and then see what ROI on those and then moving on from there.
Brilliant. No, thanks for that. I'm sure everyone's making notes frantically in the background here. That's brilliant.
I see them all. Look at that. Yeah, one's having lunch there.
One's babies in the background. It's wild. Jason, so marketing and getting the word and the traffic word out and the traffic in, those are really important. But getting the deal across the line is ultimately that's golden, right? That's the money in the bank. So now that face-to-face conversations and traveling to meet a client in a different country or even a different city has been complex, what's the best way to have a conversation with a prospect right now to try and get them over the line if you're thinking about this environment?
Yeah, so I think there's two things here. I think number one is like start at home, right? You've got a bunch of clients that are already working with you. Okay, it's so much easier to go back to them to try and sell them additional things. They almost want to be sold additional stuff. But I wouldn't start with just like, oh, hey, just increase your retainer with us. Oh, hey, can you buy some more stuff from us? Put something together that just like you ask your staff to like, take initiative and like, hey, what else can we do to this business to make it better? Like you always want your staff to show initiative. Do the same with your clients. Put together a little strategy that has put together a little strategy, go, this is what the results we potentially could see from it. But in order for us to execute this, we're going to need another 20 hours a month, right? You don't have to take it. We'll carry on doing what you know, but keep this on the side burner, right? That stuff is what your clients are looking for. So I'd always start going back to your current clients and seeing what else you can sell them as a starting point. So that's going to get you more leads in the door and more, more revenue. And then I think outside of that, I think doing those things I've mentioned. So I think I'm going to talk about email lead generation, which is obviously like finding the right people to talk to and maybe emailing them and doing the same thing. Like, was about giving a bit of value up front and then trying to get on a call with people. Like, I think that's, and also not wasting your time getting on the calls with wrong people. Businesses that are, let's say you go after business that need to have, 10 or 15, 100 staff because that's where your product is. Don't have the calls with the company that is only 10 staff. They're not going to be your clients. You're wasting your time. You're ticking the HubSpot box of, oh, I've got another lead. But actually it's not moving your business anywhere. So I think that's something quite important when you are going out and doing, trying to get more leads or, who to get on the call. I think that's quite important too, like who you're reaching out to.
Yeah, you're saying speaking to leads, like it's such an easy thing to connect to new people. I know it must come very naturally to you having been in that game for quite a while now. But how does the average business owner in their company go about finding those leads? Right, all that they've got is they're locked in their spare bedroom and they're behind their computer. They can't actually go out and meet new people, have new conversations, get a referral over a coffee. Close a deal over lunch, etc. How do you go about targeting more leads?
So I think one thing, if we talk about sort of one way who you're going to be actually speaking to, would be going and saying, if you got, there's two ways to do this. You do this manually and sitting on LinkedIn Sales Navigator and going through lists and doing some filtering there and finding people. And then, there's some tools out there, Email Hunter, a few of them that like Email Hunter. I think it's a good starting point. You can give them a LinkedIn URL and it'll give you the person's email address, right? That's like a good starting point. Or go to Upwork.com and find a LinkedIn list builder, and they'll build you lists of, okay, I'm looking for, businesses that are in financial services. They have more than 25 staff. They're based in Cape Town and they have blonde hair, right? So then it's gonna be like, okay, cool. lo@ocfo.com. So they're gonna pull out your email address. So sorry about that. Everyone's gonna be
good. But it has to be a very compelling email, otherwise there will be no response on it.
Exactly. So that's a starting point. That's how you can get in front of some people. Obviously you need a compelling message, and then listen, we can wax lyrical forever, but I think that's a good starting point. But don't forget about the other things. Don't forget about the content marketing. Don't think about the PPC potentially. So there's a couple of things. Yeah.
Got it. No, those are a good couple of things. Lots to think about. Thank you so much for taking this whole world of marketing and sales and crunching it into 10, 12 minutes with me. You have an amazing way of doing that. Guys, Jason Bagley, thank you very much for being here with us today and sharing your insights. You guys we'll share Jason's details if anyone wants to learn a bit more about how he goes about generating all of these leads and new business for his clients all over the world. Thanks for being here, bud.
Cheers, Lo.
Thanks, Jason. See you soon. Jock, I'm going to ask Jock to jump on the call with me. Guys, we are very privileged to have Jock Lagrange here with us today. He's one of the directors at Outsource CFO and a lifelong friend of mine. We've been through a lot of trenches together over the last Jock, what is it now? 14 odd years. I would imagine if you include varsity probably.
14, 15, eh?
Goodness, they're ticking over for sure. We're getting younger in the process, right? Guys, I have Jock here to share with us about finance. The world of finance and accounting it's changed quite drastically in the last 5 years prior to COVID hitting, and then COVID hit, and now this massive shift to digital and to automation has just been super accelerated by the environment we found ourselves in, because all of a sudden lots of companies and business owners didn't actually have access to their accountants. Their accountants didn't have access to their systems, and so lots of new solutions had to be found. So Jock, I'd like just kind of kick us off with, these kind of trends in the finance and accounting industry that entrepreneurs should really take note of. Like, what should a business owner really know about what's happening with how finance and accounting is done in an SME space?
Yeah, no, thanks. I think, like you mentioned, obviously there's a lot that has been happening in the last 5 years with the explosion in data that launched the fourth industrial revolution, which was in its own sense already a big game changer. But with that, like you mentioned, COVID. So that just created a bigger need for, I guess, to an extent, what was already there, but especially like everyone would know, remote working, the need for cloud, and with that came the need for cloud and working on the cloud. And with that came the need to ensure that everything is secure. I mean, it showed how the market is sensitive for something like WhatsApp happening, and just that dependability as well. And in the finance part, some people would be aware of in South Africa, Sage going down at stages, and that just created a scenario for some entrepreneurs where they didn't have dependable access. So I think those are key things, is going to the cloud, but with going to the cloud is making sure that the data is secure, but at the same time dependable, and that you have access to that. And other trends that came with taking things to the cloud is automizing processes. I think Donnie spoke about that as one of their 3 core focus areas. But with the fourth industrial revolution starting off, there's just been so much opportunity through different softwares coming to the forefront in automizing processes, and just a lot of those things that previously took time. And I think with that, it had the result that there's accelerated access to data and information, making things like obtaining finance so much easier with platforms like Bridgement. It just being able to, within 24 hours, get access to cash if you're on some of these cloud platforms, which is a game changer in going through difficult times, which wasn't there previously. So I think, to summarize it, in terms of the platforms for sharing data and working together on things, has opened so many avenues to move quicker and closing on opportunities.
No, sure. I think you're capturing it really well, Jock. That's definitely a lot of food for thought in terms of where things are, where they've come from and where they're going right now. Jock, we've spent a lot of time the last while talking about this kind of concept of almost like a perfect finance function or a world-class finance function for a scale-up size company. Like throwing the ideas around of like, what does that practically look like and what the structure is for that. If I were to throw that question out to you to speak to our audience today about, what does a perfect finance function look like for a growing business in the current environment? How would you go about almost like laying that out for them?
Yeah, I think I'll share my screen just to make it easier, and you should be seeing it around about now. But yeah, this is obviously something that we've been working on at Outsource CFO as well. But it's just about what's those components for an ideal financial function, whether it's 2021, whichever year we're at. And we've broken it down in this hierarchy of financial needs, Lo, that I know took a lot of your labor of love as well. But just this being some of the different components to a good financial function. And what I realize is that a lot of businesses focus on the first 2, if even at all. So we're starting off with an accurate basic financial information, making sure that everything that goes in is accurately documented. And then on the second base, we have compliance and assurance. And I find that's where most businesses stop short, at least if they can please SARS and the bank. That's as far as their financial function stretches. But as we can see, that falls almost so short of being able to do that strategic direction decisions that Donnie also spoke of, and maximizing profit and cash. So the different layers that we have here, we spoke about the first 2. Third one is standardized operating procedures, so that it's laid out how procedures work. And then on top of that, automation. And what I've seen a lot is people would like to do automation first because it's such a buzzword. But if you don't have your standard operating procedures in place, there's nothing to automate, right? So that's an important thing, just to get the priorities right. And once you have that as a nice base, then that enables the entrepreneur to have that advanced financial information, to measure your KPIs or your OKRs, as Donnie mentioned, look at how to maximize profit and cash through that planning, and then also going into strategic direction, looking at your BAG and how you're going to pivot your business in those directions. And I think in terms of an ideal financial function, it should enable the owners or entrepreneur to be in the know of what's happening in the business and to know what to do next, and that it's not only knock-on effects for them. And I think that's, if I have to summarize it, it would be the combination of these components that really helps in that sense.
Sure, Jock. No, I mean, that's amazing. We could probably stand still on each one of those layers for quite a while and keep the audience busy. But let me leave it at, if you guys need to speak to Jock about this, this concept of a perfect finance function that can take the hassle out for founder teams and for management teams in terms of managing the finance and ultimately getting the right financial information and peace of mind from the finance function to be able to focus on the strategic direction of the company, like Jock now mentioned, and like Donnie also mentioned. I think that's absolutely critical. So thanks for that. That's a beautiful description. Jock, the last thing I just want to chat about is just the financial tools, the technologies that you love at the moment, like what you would advise entrepreneurs to have a look at, to be able to think about what tech and tools do I need to run a good finance function. We had that middle layer of automation there. I know that's one of the very exciting elements of it, but how would you address those pillars when you think about the tools to implement?
Yeah, so in terms of, like we mentioned, the basics first, it would be ideal to have your accounting systems on the cloud, depending on the size of your business. And we found that something like Xero is amazing in that. And from there, if you have it, Xero, for instance, you can build a lot of other plugins in there that automates other processes. And one of these is cash flow, specifically in the time that we're in. Business owners aren't always sure when that customer is going to pay or how long it's going to be outstanding. And there's a cash flow tool called cash flow forecasting, where you can build these different scenarios, which is updated by your past historic information in Xero. And so instead of having someone spend hours updating a spreadsheet, by the time it's finished, is no longer relevant almost anymore. You can actually have it in real time, and that's really exciting. So I found, if I have to point out specifically one, there's so many, but in terms of, like they say, cash is king. So if you can have eyes on that, it really makes it easier.
I love that. Yeah, it plays right into Donnie's number one thing also for this time. It's just making sure you keep a handle on cash. You make sure you find ways to preserve cash and you manage it smartly, because I think lots of companies have learned the lesson of what happens when you run out of cash, or when you get very, very close to run out of cash. And I once read there's nothing that ages a director team as much as running out of cash within the company. And I think that's probably quite relatable to a lot of entrepreneurs. Some of those tight months are when the guys sweat, when the guys add their gray hairs or lose some of their hair, and we can all attest that everyone is tempted to build a company for sure. So Jock, I think that's what we have time for today. I would love to chat to you more about this. I think it's a really relevant topic, and we should probably unpack this in a proper full session at some stage. But thank you for sharing your expertise and your time here today. It's a privilege to chat to you, and good luck with everything you're busy with on that side.
Yes, thanks, Lau.
Thanks, sir. Okay, guys, we're heading into our last session now. Can I ask Linky to join me on the stage, please?
Right.
There we go. Linky, welcome. Guys, we're very, very privileged to have Helene with us here today. She is the founder of Credo Growth and one of the best specialists in leadership and people development that I've come across in my entire business career. So we're privileged to have some of her thoughts and shares and inputs here with us today. Nikki, so yeah, I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes. We're going to have to focus, but this is such an exciting topic to me personally. I love working with people and building a team. And, you know, building a team in a remote environment, like all of a sudden, everyone was remote, 10, 11 months ago. And many companies have been like predominantly remote kind of ever since. And it brings difficulty for management teams and directors. There's a lot of extra complexity now to manage. You can't just have that quick coffee with someone to straighten out a conversation. So what would your best advice be at this stage of the fight? Now, having learned some lessons from, I'm sure, hundreds of founders and teams over the last while, like how do you go about, building a remote team as a leader? How can you think about that? How can you approach it?
So I can talk about this for days, but I think the first thing that I want to say is being remote, you already have things that you compete against. You have the fridge, the bed, and the TV that you compete against as a business. And from all the work that we've done now with remote teams, the fourth thing that you compete against is the lack of communication. Now, I know some guys might say, oh, communication is such an obvious thing. It is insane how little people communicate and how they think they are over communicating. So that for me is the very first thing that you need to implement. And I'm not just talking about your morning meeting huddles in communication. I'm talking about creating feedback loops. I'm talking about pick up the phone. It doesn't always have to be Zoom, and just checking in how the colleague is or how your team member is without an agenda. Because the mistake that we make the most is everything now has to have an agenda. We live in a time where people just need to feel that they are being noticed. And I think another kind of cultural communication aspect that you can bring in, especially being remote, is to have the agreement that when someone has sent you a message or when someone has sent you an email or Telegram, whatever, all these kind of tools are out there, is to respond by just at least saying on it or got it or noticed, notified, or anything like that, because people are sitting and they go, did they see it? Did they not see it? So you can't go over the desk quickly, hey, did you get my email? It's a two-way street of communication. And then I think the last thing, I'm talking fast, I know, because we've got very little time. But I think the last thing that I want to mention is right in the beginning of lockdown, I designed a thing that's called the Remote Team Intelligence Framework. And not going into the detail, but the main three things that we're looking at as what you as a leader can do is, have you set the direction? Have you set routines? And are you looking at the engagement? So those three things and then you've got trust right there in the center of it. If you can focus on those three things, direction, routine and habits, and engagement, that should make it a lot easier for you.
Sure, guys. Yeah, if anyone wants to learn more about that, I know I do. We'll share Eileen's details afterwards. That's very, very interesting. Great work you've been putting into that space for sure. And I know it's very valuable to a lot of the entrepreneurs you work with and their teams. So you mentioned trust in one of the last sentences there. And,
my obsession.
Funny, we on our Monday morning motivation this week, we actually had building a high trust environment and a high trust team was actually our topic on Monday morning. So I'd be curious to ask you some of those questions. Like, how do you go about with a remote team, building a trust environment and building a trusting team ultimately?
So I think there's a few concepts that people need to understand. I mean, there's many different ways to look at trust. The one that I found extremely valuable is one that was developed by The Trusted Advisor. Brilliant book if you want to read it. And there's 4 focus areas. And this is for leaders, this is for management, whether you senior management or mid-level management, as well as for employees. And it goes around your whole network, all the stakeholders. And that is about first building credibility. Credibility is about the words that you speak. Can I trust what you are saying? Can I see that things have been researched? Can I see that you love your topic and that you know your stuff? Yes. The second thing is reliability. Can I trust that what you say you were going to do is going to get done on that specific time? So that's about your actions. And then you have the professional intimacy. Are you making an effort to connect with me? Or is it only me who's making the effort with you? So those 3 things are the foundations of trust. And then it's also the whole thing around, what is your agenda? Are you transparent with your agenda, or is it all about what's in it for you?
Sure.
So if you can focus on increasing your credibility, your reliability, and how you connect with people, and you can show transparency. Yes, there's something like selective transparency, let's be honest. But if you can make the person understand that it's not just about you and it's about the benefit of the project or the team or the business, those 4 components for me really starts building trust. But people need to know this. They need to learn it. They need to reflect on, what is my credibility rating at the moment? What do I think is my reliability rating? How do I connect with people, and where do I need help? But we expect people just to kind of build trust. We don't show them how to do it.
Got
So
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Like a structure and a framework for something that can be, fairly intangible in some ways, right? Like, yeah, absolutely love that. Thanks so much for the share. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about today was just about, kind of like people well-being and also motivation in this time where, lots of people have now almost spent a year working from their spare bedroom or the corner of their kitchen or living area, and the demands from work is still there. Sometimes the pressures are even higher because companies need to push hard now to make it. They have to make a lot of change. So it's, it's quite hectic on team motivation. It's quite difficult on personal well-being for a lot of people. And I'm sure we all know people who've taken significant strain in the last while. In which way would you say like management teams or founders can kind of help build a resilient team and can help contribute to, just staff feeling motivated and feeling that their well-being is taken care of?
So there's quite a few practical things that you can do. My natural default is always from a development space, but I'll get to that now. I think some practical things internally that you can do without getting external people in is to have knowledge share sessions. So it's literally where people do different types of research that will support the team, and then in a very fun, creative way, get the team together where they share what they've learned. It helps the business, but it also creates that little bit of connectedness without constantly, what do I need to achieve? What do I need to do? Other things, I loved what Donnie said in terms of his COVID leave that he gives and the meals that he sends. So those are a little bit of a more, I almost want to say, humane way of like acknowledging what people are going through.
Yes.
But then if I can go back to the development part, which, Lo, I'm passionate about this. Yeah, is like Donnie also mentioned employee experience, okay? We expect people to show up motivated. We expect them to be productive. We want them to have grit and resilience. Do we actually create the environment for them where they can show up motivated, productive, having resilience? Do we equip them with the skills to do that? And I think the past few months, luckily for Credo in that sense, that is what we have been busy with, is really supporting people to upskill themselves in resilience. And I think Donnie called it stamina, mental well-being. People aren't just that naturally for many different reasons. Entrepreneurs, yes, you're kind of born with it or you have to deal with it, otherwise you're not going to survive. But our team members don't always have that. So if you want them to produce all of these great results during a time that we are in, provide them with a skill. Don't expect them just to have it. And I think that's where I feel quite strongly that we have these expectations, but we as entrepreneurs don't necessarily give it to them and equip them to actually show up to what we expect.
Yeah, just figuring out how to create that environment and offering the tools and the support. It's absolutely critical. Thank you.
I mean, there's
Tom Bruce is commenting that he loves your energy here in the background.
I'm passionate.
We keep inviting you back every time because she has such passion for her field of expertise. It's so much fun to chat to her about.
I'm not sure whether it's passion or opinionated, but anyway, let's see what I think.
I think it can be both. It can definitely be both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Linky, I just want to ask one more question. Lots of teams, have grown backwards or not grown at all last year. Some teams have still grown in spite of it, but I think most teams going into this new year, where things are starting to stabilize, or even if they're not quite stabilizing yet, the companies have now adjusted to the new environment. So they're able to, start growing and start scaling again, and they need to rethink about, building their team and hiring new recruits. But it's quite interesting hiring new people that you've never met face to face, right? It's a new experience for a lot of management teams right now. So what would your best advice be to someone who's looking to scale their team and engage in hiring and attracting talent in this time?
So I think the one thing that I want to say is there was a study by LinkedIn quite recently about what is the number one thing that people are considering when they are looking for jobs. Now, the reason why I'm twisting it around is because you want it to be easy and let the best people come to you also, and not just you wanting to look the whole time. And what came up there was the first thing is engaging and inspiring culture, and also the employee experience and employee development. Yep. That is what really A players are actually looking for. So having said that, it's also you're not being able to see this person face to face. So you can now speak, if you do that, you can now speak about the culture. And remember, you don't meet a culture, you have to experience the culture. Mm-hmm. But you can speak about the culture and you can speak about the employee development. But how you interview, and I also noticed a few people doing the interviews, they're still interviewing based on skill and experience. Yes, 100% you have to do that. However, Dani spoke about values. My suggestion, what we do personally and what I've also implemented with my clients is to use a values behavior charter. So I'm quickly going to give you an example if we have time. So say, for instance, you've got 5 different values. For each value, you identify 5 different behaviors of what does that value physically look like? And then for each behavior, you've got a question. So example, if the value is continuous improvement, which I think is a lot of value for a lot of businesses these days, continuous improvement, 2 of the 5 behaviors might be like, I stay on trend around new coding trends and coding techniques. The second value behavior is whenever I learn something new, I transfer the knowledge to my colleagues. Okay. The questions to that would then be, what was the latest coding trend that you have learned and when was that? So that shows whether that person is living that behavior. The other question can be, when last did you share knowledge with someone in your team that you've learned? And then they answer that. If they don't answer according to the behavior, they're not showing the value. Yeah. So it really gives you that opportunity to not tell people what your values are, but to ask them questions to see if they naturally show that behavior that speaks to your value. I use that all the time and it works beautifully. Of course, I've got 5 values. I'm not going to ask 25 different questions, but I might use 1 of each value or 2 of each value.
Yes. Okay, now I love it how you make it practical in terms of, values can be fairly intangible. Company values applied to an individual person is sometimes a bit complex. But I love how you take those behaviors from each value that you want to see in a person and ask the question without talking about directly about the value. That's so clever. So yeah, guys, you can see why Eileen is on the stage today. There's such a wealth of knowledge and passion for people. And yeah, we'll absolutely share her details as well if anyone wants to get in touch, because we've run out of time. We've killed an hour. I can't believe it's gone so fast. Thank you very much for being on the call with us today. I know everyone on here has gotten a lot of value from it. And yeah, keen to keep talking about building brilliant teams.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me. It's really great what you guys are doing here.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Lo. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Cool, guys. So we've reached our literally our last minute or so. So just in terms of a wrap up, we've heard some brilliant thoughts in terms of how to think about strategy, marketing and sales, finance and people and leadership in a time such as now. And I think the environment is complex and there's lots of moving parts. The ground isn't super solid, but there's also an abundance of opportunity that's right here for the taking. For those companies that are willing to step up to the plate and take things to the next level. I know we've got a couple of questions here. We'll get back to the guys as we go in terms of answering that. But I just want to thank everyone before we log off here for being here today, for spending this time with us. I'm trusting that there's some golden nuggets that you all got from it. I know I definitely have. So all the best for this 2021. And don't miss the next webinar and conference that the Outsource CFO team will be hosting. we look forward to this journey with you guys, and we will see you all soon. Thanks so much.